Hey everyone, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing a video, and this one is about what left-wing channels do I like currently on YouTube. And because a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, my favorite channels were completely different in many ways. For one, I really liked The Amazing Atheist. Followed him for years. And it wasn't his recent, more establishment takes on things that really turned me off, because I had stopped watching like late 2019, or maybe even like mid 2019. It was more just like, for some reason, I just wasn't as entertained by his takes as much anymore. I don't know exactly why that happened. And I used to watch Deep Fat Fried, which I still like a lot of those classic episodes, and same with Drunken Peasants, but something just didn't appeal to me after a certain point with him. So that's one that was crossed off the list relatively early compared to some of the stuff. And the Young Turks, as I've told in previous videos, is I've stopped watching them in about June of 2020, because obviously if we could watch my Young Turks related stuff, because I just could not handle the sensationalism, the dehumanization of certain political foes and stuff. And I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, and I know I'm a hypocrite. I'm working on stuff every day, to get better as far as my own punching down or punching sideways a little bit, So it doesn't mean you have to punch up either, but punching up is definitely preferable to punching down or punching sideways. Or punching up in a certain way, So that was out of the question at that point. I was watching Jimmy Dore throughout like 2018, and maybe about mid 2019 I stopped watching him for a long time. It just got kind of, I don't know what it was, but I got kind of burned out on that. And then, of course, like the last year and a half, that's one of the major ones. So Jimmy Dore is one of the people that I still watch as far as the left-wingers go, quote unquote. I like his content. Lately he's been, hitting pretty hard on on certain subjects, and maybe some on the left will not think of too fondly. So that's one that I watch. I watch Breaking Points, and that has Crystal Ball and Sagar and Genti, if I'm even saying that name right. And Sagar is not he's not really a left winger, I would say. It was kind of created as this like sort of like this populist right and populist left come together kind of show. And I think Crystal Ball was part of the Democratic Party for a long time, and she kind of got out of that, but I think I don't know if she was part of the Bernie campaign. No, I'm thinking of someone else. I'm thinking of Kim Iverson, I believe. Or no, she was part of that Halsey campaign, Kim Iverson. But Kim Iverson is another one I watch. I take her more with a grain of salt than Jimmy Dore. I think some of her takes lack a little nuance in a certain way sometimes, but that's another one I watch. I've come to really like Hard Lens Media, especially, and also the Vanguard. And Jackson Hinkle is another one. I watch them constantly. I think those three channels are the rising left-wing stars of YouTube, pretty much. Like Vanguard are two like guys that are like I think they're in their early 20s, but they do such a good job on breaking stuff down and just talking about topics and things like that. And I also like Jackson Hinkle. Now, Jackson Hinkle is a self-admitted Marxist-Leninist, which I will admit I have problems with that label at times. I'm just not really into the Leninist thing. That said, he really calls out the hypocrisy of the left nowadays. His takes on a lot of things are really spot on, regardless of what he calls himself. Some type of mental gymnastics to get myself to really like try to connect that to his actual videos that are just like definitely calling out authoritarianism. If he said he was just a Marxist, I'd understand to a certain extent, even though I still do disagree with a lot of Marxism. But the Leninist part definitely bothers me, and maybe there is this like mythical, somewhat mythical side of leftism, that Lenin was a good guy and he was actually trying to really implement the communist state, and Stalin was the one who corrupted it. And you know, there's a lot of books and historians that have actually debunked that claim. I'm not sure of the extent of the truth of one way or the other with that, because I haven't read. I have a People's Tragedy book. It's a book about that, which I haven't read yet. It's like 3,000 pages or something, which I will be reading one day. So, nevertheless, that said, that huge rant. Disclaimer: I'm not a Marxist-Leninist. Just as I watch 6 and a Hammer, and I'm not a Trump supporter either. And I like both of them pretty much equally. But, you know, somewhere in the middle of those two, I guess. I don't know, or take the best and leave the worst of each one. I don't know. You know, it's a weird. And, you know, 6 and a Hammer, it definitely gets a lot of things wrong at times, too. But overall, I'm not meant. This is about the left-wingers that I'm talking about, that I watch on YouTube right now, not about the right-wingers, which maybe I'll do a separate video about, too. So, Jackson Hinkle, definitely. Something just really appeals to me about his channel, despite him being basically a communist. He's not like that one Maoist guy on YouTube. I forgot that guy's name. He's not anything like that. Like, it's just like, it was like kind of a shock that he said he was a Marxist-Leninist. So anyways, Hard Lens Media from Chicago remind me of like relatives, almost like that same kind of Chicago thing, because that's where a lot of my family is originally from. Kind of watching them is like kind of interesting sometimes, like some of their accents and stuff is like, oh, am I going to see my uncle down in, you know, Illinois or whatever? You know, it's like kind of interesting. Like they have kind of that same attitude as some of my relatives and stuff had back in the day. Like they have this fiery, like Midwestern thing. I really like it. I really enjoy it. Watching that channel, and they point out all sorts of stuff. They're very nuanced, very intelligent people on that, running that channel. It's probably my favorite new channel I've discovered. I started watching it like early, like it's spring this year, and I was like, what is this? It was just like, I was in shock that it was so good. So that's another channel I recommend. This is basically a recommendation video for left-wingers that I watch on YouTube. I almost said still watch, but that's not true. It's just that I watch. So about those 4, and there was a few others that I'm trying to think of that I've discovered, but like, you know, Jimmy Dore, The Vanguard, Hard Lens Media, Jackson Hinkle. I kind of go back and forth between all 4, and I'll bring up one video from, you know, and they'll be talking about the same thing. You know, they'll talk a lot about the Young, and Jimmy Dore obviously too. The, you know, the Young Turks. They'll talk about how, you know, Cenk Uygur threatened Joe Rogan or whatever the other day on Twitter. I mean, it's kind of silly stuff, but it's entertaining, you know. So yeah, that's a lot of the left-wing winners I watch, and you know, I watch Kim Iverson to some extent too. Still, some of her commentary is weird, though. Sometimes I'm just like, what is she trying to say, really? But usually I agree with it for the most part. I think Jimmy Dore does a better job, like the current crisis stuff. You know what I'm talking about, the CB. I think Dore does a better, more nuanced job, even if he has Max Blumenthal on, who's basically kind of an anti-V person at this point. I mean, he's become kind of more along those lines, which with his explanation, his reasoning is pretty good. I mean, it doesn't mean that he is. He's not really like that, but a left wing, like a blue check DNC CNN watching liberal would probably call Max Blumenthal anti you know what, but he's definitely not. But that's just kind of, I'm just kind of giving that disclaimer warning. But my point is, Jimmy Dore is way more nuanced than Kim Iverson about this crisis, in my opinion. She gets a little weird about it, and Dore likes to point different things out that are more specific, that are more relevant in a certain way. So, but I do like Kim Iverson too. I watch her somewhat too. I'm trying to think of more left-wingers that I watch. But basically, that it revolves around those four. There's others I'm discovering all the time too. I'm definitely not a right winger at this point. I wouldn't say that I'm Republican, but I'll do a separate video about the right wingers that I watch on YouTube, and that's coming up next.